These are my current cars, a 2020 Kia e-Niro and a BMW i3. And this is the Smart 5, Smart #5, I think I'm supposed to call it, which we just got back from Italy with. It's a wonderfully comfortable, spacious SUV. It charges fast, it drives well, and is arguably a near-perfect road tripper, actually. But it has its problems. And they're problems that it shares with every modern car. I'm fortunate to test a lot of new cars, but I always tend to enjoy getting back into these old relics instead. And why is that? It's because modern cars are just a bit rubbish. This video is sponsored by EVision Electric Vehicles, the UK's first and largest all-electric vehicle hire company. So, at the risk of sounding like an old man, here's my list of the absolute worst things about new cars. And this is not me picking on the Smart 5, by the way. It's brilliant, but it's the car I happen to have right now, so sorry, it's in the firing line. Let's get in the car, and I'm going to see how many people I can offend with this list. Number 1, they're too big. This Smart 5 is 1,920mm wide, which is already massive. But then you've got the Polestar 4, which is over 2 meters wide. Although even that is less than a Range Rover. Car parks aren't getting any bigger, it seems, so it just adds extra stress when you're parking or when you're driving down narrow country lanes, which happens a lot to me because my satnav, for some reason, will decide to take me off the beaten track and down a country lane to save 1 minute. But it doesn't save 1 minute, and it just adds extra stress because invariably you get to a point where there's another car coming and then you've got to reverse up and find a passing point. Anyway, maybe I'll get into satnavs later. Talking of Range Rovers, my God, there are a lot of them, aren't there? And people blame EVs for potholes. A new Range Rover is about 2.5 tons, at least 2.5 tons. They're even more than that sometimes. So even this Smart is lighter than that. Door handles. Now this is probably popularised by Tesla, is my guess. Flush door handles. They can be the ones that pop out when you approach or when you unlock, like this Smart does, which is fine. Look at that. Omotenashi. But some, like the Tesla and others, involve pushing them in to pop them out.
It's a bit shit.
It's classic style over substance. They look great. It makes it look slick, doesn't it? And obviously it's more efficient, although I'm not sure exactly how much more efficient it is, but are they as good as a proper handle? No. Thank God for Skoda, who actually put proper handles on their cars. And then on the inside of the car, we've got buttons for opening the door from the inside. What's wrong with a proper handle, eh? When we had a BMW iX, which was an otherwise fantastic car, my dad couldn't work out how to get out. Yeah, once you park and then...
How do I...
Oh, sorry, it's that button there.
Oh, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cars have had door handles on the inside since the beginning. Why do we have to change it now? It's complexity for the sake of it. And no wonder people have died in crashes because of the panic involved in trying to work out how to release the door if they don't know where the emergency door handle is. I mean, I just don't see the point in having an emergency manual door release. Just have a proper handle. Anyway, I think China are going to legislate that cars have proper handles. So hopefully that spreads to the rest of the world. Now, if you know why we've gone to buttons to open doors, then let me know in the comments, but I don't see any real reason for it personally. Bings and bongs. Some brands are better than others, and if you've watched this channel for a while, you'll know the worst offenders, and that's Kia and Hyundai. And I love Kia and Hyundai, but my God. Bing, what was that? Bing, what did I do? Bing, was that relevant? What was that bubble? It drives me absolutely mad. And so every time, of course, you get in the car, you've got to turn all these things off every single time. And talking of that, speed limit warnings. Every time you start driving a new car, it'll bug you if you exceed the speed limit by 1 mile an hour. Surely that's good, Andrew. We don't want people speeding, and that's true, because obviously speeding does cause crashes and therefore deaths. Try sticking at exactly the limit. It's difficult. Go 2 under, and you could end up annoying the person behind you, who then overtakes dangerously, lest they reach their destination seconds late. Of course, you can turn off the limit, but then that involves faffing around on a touchscreen. Some cars are better than others, and they do have actual buttons that you can press, and then that goes to the screen where you can turn it off quickly. Hold down on this to turn off the speed limit warning. But the biggest problem is, does the car actually know what the speed limit is? Because it's fine if it does, but much of the time it just doesn't. So you could be driving along and then it will beep and it will say beep, 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 you're going above the speed limit. And you're looking, you think, no, it's beeping at me. It thinks that the road is 40 miles an hour here, but it's actually 60, which makes it useless, doesn't it? And it's even worse if you're using adaptive cruise control, which ordinarily I like, but if it thinks that you're going too fast, then it will reduce your speed to match the speed limit that it thinks it is. But what if you're doing 130 kilometers an hour, as I have been, going through Europe, and it thinks, for some reason, that now the speed limit is 90? It will slow you down automatically if you're on adaptive cruise control. Why is it slowing down? Why is it slowing down? It's 110. It thought it was 90. The person behind you is merrily doing 130, and in Italy, they don't give you very much space, right? And then you just start braking for no real reason. So it's dangerous. These speed limit things are dangerous. And also, it just becomes white noise almost, because it's like The Boy Who Cried Wolf. It gets it wrong so often that you learn to ignore it or forget it or turn it off. And then what's the point in having it in the first place? All these driver assistance aids, it does mean that the cars get a higher Euro NCAP safety score. But like I said before, it kind of becomes white noise, I think, and you just end up getting annoyed. Touch screens and fewer physical controls. I blame Tesla for this as well. Obviously, it looks clean to have a touch screen, doesn't it? And the Model 3 interior is lovely, I think. It's very zen. It's like what Steve Jobs' desk at Apple was probably like. But I like physical controls. Give me knobs for volume and heating controls, demister, lights, heated seats, all the good stuff, all the important stuff. And I know there's the argument that iPhones killed off the Nokias and Blackberries of the world, of course, because touchscreens are more flexible. And really, you could argue better. But that's for a smartphone. It's not for a car, I think. Because when you're driving at fast speeds in a car and you want to do something like change the heating controls, then I think you should have muscle memory to go straight to a button, a proper button that changes it. I don't think you should be faffing around on a touch screen. Buttons and knobs also make us happier. There have been studies. You get a greater sense of satisfaction. And it's why classy premium cars or consumer products from Apple, Leica, etc., they're all obsessed with well-engineered buttons that feel pleasant. And even the new Rivian, they've got these wonderful, wonderful buttons. You can tell that they've spent a lot of time on it. They look like they feel good. And I think that's a good thing. I think we should have more buttons. There's the argument that it costs more, but I haven't really understood that, really, because cheap cars have buttons. They don't just rely on touchscreens, do they? So give me buttons any day. The good thing is, physical controls do seem to be making a bit of a comeback. Volkswagen's ID cars got derision from every motoring journalist for the kind of weird, touchy, slidey buttons that they had. They were a bit odd. And to be honest, I moan about this a lot, but to be honest, you get used to it, I suppose. But it's not as good as a proper button, which is why they've now gone back to proper buttons. And of course, the obvious one is Tesla. Tesla removed the stalks for gears and for indicating. And they obviously got a lot of complaints because certainly any country that has a lot of roundabouts, it's not as convenient using a button to indicate left and right as it is to use a stalk. So thankfully, they've brought back the stalks, which is a wonderful thing. Well, they've brought back the indicator stalks. In fact, when I tested the Model 3, which is otherwise fantastic, by the way, the new Model 3, and I haven't tested the new one that now has the stalk again. When I tested it, and I got back in the Nissan Leaf, the old Nissan Leaf, it was more of a pleasure to drive, just because it had a stalk for indicating. Anyway, it's irrelevant now. The stalk is back for Teslas. Hurrah. Ah, stalks. Oh, thank you, stalks. So this combination of physical controls and touchscreens, now I don't want to say that I'm completely against touchscreens, because actually I think they're really good. I do think they're really good because it is so flexible. But it's nice to have a combination of buttons and touchscreen. And this, I think, is where Kia and Hyundai get it about right. Although the EV5 has touch-sensitive menu buttons, which is maddening. Let's just go to Edinburgh. Oh, what happened? Oh, that's annoying. That's annoying. So because these are touch sensitive, I just accidentally pressed one of those. So the big irony, of course, is that we have to rely on the touch screens to do so many things, but then in the Volkswagen ID.7, that would moan at me if I was using the touchscreen too much while I was driving. And yes, this will be about the time that I get attacked by people in the comments who'll say, why do you have to change the heating controls while you're driving? Just leave it to auto. But my response is that you've clearly never driven with my wife and daughter, because when I'm driving along, I still have to change the heating controls quite a lot. That's the good thing actually about cars like the Model 3 that have heating controls in the back that allow the passengers to change it. Or perhaps you'll tell me to use voice commands, which brings me neatly onto the next issue. Voice commands. These are usually awful. Whether it's getting my favourite radio station, play BBC Six music.
You are listening to the radio.
Playing Magic Radio, not BBC Six music. Or turning on heated seats or the steering wheel.
This function does not support voice commands at the moment.
Or asking to navigate somewhere.
Oh, that's something I still need to learn.
I find that much of the time the car will fail in basic tasks. You've got to almost memorise a list of commands to get it exactly right. Now, some are better than others. Google, unsurprisingly, tend to be very good, and Google cars are Volvo, Renault, Polestar, and probably some others. I can't remember. Now, I've had mixed results with Tesla, although generally it's pretty good. They have added their AI assistant Grok to it, so maybe it's good these days, especially if you want to undress celebrities. It'll be great at that. Kia have added ChatGPT.
Kia EV, the 3rd of May, not have a heated steering wheel feature.
That's not the best, really. Keyless entry. You've got your key in your pocket, you go up to the car and it unlocks as you approach without having to use a physical key like in the old days. How great is that? So obviously I'm saying this is a bad thing, but actually I like it a lot. I love it, in fact. The only downside is that it does make it much easier to steal your car, which is why a lot of people were finding their Ioniq 5s getting stolen, for instance. And then you have to end up putting your keys in a Faraday pouch and stuff like that, which sometimes helps, but sometimes doesn't. So thieves can use something called a relay attack to trick the car into thinking that they've got the key with them, but they haven't. Tesla's approach is pretty good in this respect, actually, because you can have a PIN code, input the PIN code, and then you can drive off. So that's really good, and I do feel that more cars should have that. Subscription features. The audacity of manufacturers charging a monthly fee for features already built into the car. BMW famously tried to charge for heated seats. Heated seats that you've already paid for. It's like the whole printer ink model applied to a £50,000 vehicle, and it's only going to get worse. Crappy satnavs. Now, it is great to have satnav in the car. I mean, I rely on it all the time now, but only if it works well. And so many seem absolutely rubbish, out of date, and they can't even plan a trip with charging stops correctly, which really should be basic stuff by now in EVs. And I'm looking at you, Stellantis. I had the Vauxhall Corsa recently. You know, it's an otherwise nippy little, quite fun car, but the sat-nav really was pretty awful. It thought that the car would run out of charge in a certain place, but I knew that it would be way before that. So if you had a Corsa and you were blindly relying on your sat-nav, you would probably end up running out of charge on the motorway and vowing never to get an EV again. So, thankfully, most sat-navs these days are pretty good. But yeah, I think Stellantis are the ones probably that have to do a lot of work there. And finally, middle seats. Now, this is a big car. As I said, it's quite a wide car. That middle seat isn't that usable for an adult. It's not too bad. It's not as bad as some I've seen. But really, most cars, the vast majority of cars, let's say all cars, in fact, that say that they're 5 seats, they're not, are they? They're 4.5 seats. And it just seems to be much worse these days. What happened to decent middle seats? Look at the seats in the back.
Ci
1,
sono
2,
tre.
3. 3 proper seats.
Infatti, quello che ti dico. Allora, le mettiti al centro.
Volete comprarla?
See. And this is despite cars getting wider and wider. You'd think there'd be more room for a decent middle seat, but clearly that's not the case, is it? If you want to get a car with a decent middle seat, it seems you have to get a 7-seater or a big kind of van. But no, just a normal family car, useless middle seat. Narrow, firm, bit of a hump. So so-called 5-seat cars are just 4.5. The disgraced American comedian Louis C.K. made a quote once, and I think about this a lot. Everything is amazing and nobody is happy. So here's why I'm wrong. Firstly, and this has got to be the most important thing, cars are much safer now. Crumple zones, ESC, ABS, loads of airbags. There are stricter safety tests. It means that you're far more likely to survive in a crash now in modern cars. I mean, look at Teslas that get crushed by trees, and that's a massive glass roof. Or there was that Tesla that drove off the cliff and everyone survived. It's amazing how people come out with minimal injuries these days, and it's because cars are much safer. And things like emergency braking and blind spot monitoring, they can make driving safer. And in fact, I've had a car brake for me when I was in a car park and I couldn't see very well, and someone walked directly behind me and it put on the emergency brake, so I didn't run someone over. So that is a great thing. Performance. If you like driving fast, you can now get supercar performance in a family EV now, which is kind of amazing, really. And while we're on the subject of EVs, because believe it or not, this video isn't just about EVs, driving an EV, it has regenerative braking, which is amazing. It means you slow down without even touching the brakes, so your brakes last longer. Not only that, the battery gets recharged when you slow down, and you can end up with more battery at the bottom of a hill than you started at the top. So if you're driving in the Alps, as we tend to do, that's great fun to start up here with 80% and you're down here with 100%. Isn't that amazing? Advanced cruise control, I did talk about this before, kind of in a negative way actually, but generally I think advanced cruise control is fantastic. Because when it works well, and it does in the e-Nero I find, keeps you in your lane, it keeps your speed regulated with the car in front. If someone cuts in front of you, then it will slow down nicely. Some cars do this better than others. The Smart 5 I'm in at the moment is a bit jerky in that respect, to be honest. And yes, some cars like Teslas, in areas where they actually allow it, they can actually drive themselves pretty well, really. And it just gets better all the time. Not perfect, of course, although you could argue that humans aren't perfect either, and a computer is probably more reliable than a human. Feel free to argue that one in the comments. Now this is a big one. No reliance on fossil fuels being shipped halfway around the world. I still haven't really got over the novelty of just driving using electricity. I can drive on coal power or nuclear power. And even if it's coal, the efficiency of an EV means that it's cleaner than petrol. And because I'm fortunate enough to have a driveway, I can refuel at home, which is pretty amazing, I think. Charging overnight is much cheaper, so I drive around for 2p per mile. I drove 7,000 miles in my e-Nero last year, and it cost me about £140. I could even charge for free just using sunshine if I wanted to by using my solar panels. So when the world falls apart, I'm going to get a little cabin with lots of solar in a field, and I can just drive around my EV using electricity I generate myself. So that's my plan. No tailpipe emissions. It always baffles me that some people have a problem with EVs, because if you walk behind an old dirty ICE car, there's nothing enjoyable, is there, about breathing in all that exhaust? Less pollution is surely a good thing. So just as an example, London is far more pleasant now than it used to be, thanks to all of the EVs and hybrids that drive around. It's cleaned up the air a lot. It actually reminds me of the smoking ban, because before the smoking ban, I didn't enjoy going to pubs and restaurants very much. After the smoking ban, it was so much more pleasant, I think. And it feels a little bit the same way, I think, for me, with the prevalence of EVs now. And I know this is going to be the point where people chime in and say, well, yeah, EVs do create more pollution, though, because of all the carbon intensity and making batteries and all the rest of it. EVs are greener. The break-even point, I think, is about 15,000 miles. And, of course, bear in mind that ICE cars, you burn fuel once, so you burn it all, and then that's it. You can't reuse it. So that's the great thing about renewables, I think. Anyway, I won't go on about that, or you'll call me a woke idiot, if you haven't already. Vehicle to load, vehicle to grid, vehicle to home. These are fantastic things. You can plug things into your car. Brilliant for camping, for instance, but also power cuts. We had our Ioniq 5, we had a couple of power cuts, and we were able to power the fridge, freezer, and whatever else for whatever it was, 11 hours I think it was the power cut went on for, powered by the car. And even relatively cheap EVs now do vehicle to load. It's a fantastic thing. And we're going to see more and more charge points that you can get on your house that allow you to do vehicle to home and vehicle to grid. Vehicle to grid meaning that you can get paid by the electricity you export from your car's battery, because remember, the car's battery is massive and it could power your house for days. So export that to the grid and you make some money, or you can just power your home from your car. So it's so flexible, it's wonderful. There's my list. Have I forgotten anything? Lights are far too bright on cars these days. Privacy issues. Lack of DIY servicing. So what do you hate or love about new cars? Tell me in the comments. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please press the subscribe button and the bell icon to be notified of other videos, and I'll be back very soon. Bye for now.